Marlon Weems of the Journeyman. I think it's called Journeyman's newsletter, right?
We can do with or without the newsletter part. Everybody knows. Everybody knows.
For those who don't know, because I think that's an important thing. But anyway, how you doing today, my friend?
Never better. Getting ready for the holidays.
Well,
haven't done any shopping. I'm as usual. I'm behind schedule.
Well, I am glad. At least you do shopping. I learned my lesson a long time ago. I let my wife tell me what I need to get, and I then go to online, find it for her, and then she does the rest.
You understand the assignment, as they say.
I understand the assignment perfectly. But anyway, one of the things that we wanted to talk about, Marlon, is we had an election, and I don't know what, we've spoken a lot, and I don't even know if I know what your political persuasion is, but that's really sort of irrelevant for some of the stuff that I want to talk about. And that is, what's your thoughts on why Kamala Harris lost an election that I don't think she should have lost?
I think that, if I had to sum it up, America just wasn't ready to elect a qualified Black woman. Oh, no, wasn't ready to elect a woman who happened to be of mixed race, Asian American, Black American, no matter how qualified she was. And I'm going to go back. Let me just take a step back from that. I suspected this, and I hoped, how sometimes you hope you're wrong about something. I suspected this back probably a year before she was even in the race, when I was out having breakfast with a guy. And where I live, it's unavoidable. I'm such an anomaly that people are trying to sort of, they want to pick and figure out what are my politics, that kind of thing. And I'm open to it. It's fine. I don't mind having the discussion. But at some point, I'll tell you when it was. It was right after October 7th. So the attack on Israel. And we were finishing up. And I thought I had escaped with minimal, political whatever. And so it comes up, and I don't know how Kamala Harris's name entered the conversation. I suspect I said something about her. And this person's reaction, white man, she's an empty suit.
Oh, God, yeah.
And I said, what do you mean? She's got nothing. She doesn't know anything. I said, well, and I named off, the resume. And I said, you know what? I'm curious to know, first of all, can you tell me what any vice president has done? What did Mike Pence tell me the policy achievements that he had? And he kind of looked at me, and I said, so are you telling me if there were a white man who had been attorney general of the biggest economy that we have, and so on and so on, you would tell me that man was an empty suit? And he kind of went, well, I guess you got a point. But it let me know how easy people or how willing they were to just write this woman off as an ignorant Black person, And so, sure enough, when she ended up in the position that she was in, look what we saw. I mean, Trump totally drove home the idea that she didn't know what she was doing. She was dumb, ignorant, didn't know anything. And so to me, it just drove home a lot of the things that America has had underneath that we don't really want to talk about, but it's part of the fabric of what this country's made of. And we just saw it play out in maybe the biggest and most embarrassing way that it ever could. Because now look, we've got completely unqualified white men being nominated into positions they have no business, literally no business being involved in. Secretary of Defense, we're going to put, so the only qualification is that he was in the military? My God, that's crazy. The FBI, Cash Patel, seriously? I saw today, and I haven't had a chance to read the whole thing about, and honestly, it sounds almost like maybe Trump and his poor daughter got catfished by this Lebanese guy whose son married her or his daughter and purported to be a billionaire. And I, what the heck? I mean, when I was reading, just kind of scanning the article, and I'm seeing this guy basically does a lot of business in Nigeria. Nothing, no shade on Nigeria, but I was like, well, I see he learned the scam, right? And so this is what we're dealing with, just this inconsistency that the most qualified Black person isn't qualified enough, and the least qualified white person, particularly a white man, that's all the qualification that is needed.
You know, it is. I am glad. You would not imagine how glad I am that yet another independent journalist comes out with the same critique. And you know, I've been interrogating, I've been interviewing journalists over the last several weeks since the election, and you know, I pretty much got tired, right?
Yeah.
Of hearing economy. She didn't speak to the economy.
Oh, you know. Okay.
The great thing about it is today I played a piece on my show, and the piece that I show was this CEO, and I was happy that the CEO happened to be a white woman coming to the defense of Kamala Harris in the way she actually went through the dialogue and explained specifically what MAGA, I shouldn't even say MAGA, what the American population lost in electing Donald Trump. It's not about it. There was nothing to gain in electing Trump. And she went through all the policies that Kamala said she was going to pass and pointed out there were no significant policies from Donald Trump to help the middle class or the poor. And we're seeing that executed right now. There are the problem that I'm having, and I'm having some discussions with some of these progressive groups that, well, I shouldn't call them progressive because these are groups that are trying to bring progressives and conservatives together. And one of the discussions that I'm having is we have to be careful in the way we talk to those on the right and a certain portion of the left, because we can't point out that the reason Kamala lost wasn't because of competency, but was solely because of gender and race. Solely because of gender and race. And I tell you, one of the, you know, I started talking to people about the math behind this. You just have to look at Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina. In those three states, she underperformed all the at-large positions. Democrats, white, North Carolina.
Since I'm in North Carolina, I certainly know what you're talking about is true,
right?
Because we had a ridiculous candidate for what's the equivalent of running the education board, you know, education superintendent. Crazy person. The state did not vote for that woman.
Right.
Then we had Lieutenant Governor that's running for governor, Mark Robinson. Same story. The Democrat won. So what happened? Why not?
I don't even want to use Marlon. I don't even want to use Robinson against I forgot what the Democrat's name was, or the school board, school superintendent.
Yes.
Let's look at the normal candidate that you had. You had a fairly normal Republican running as well, and he lost.
Now, which are you talking about? Which
Lieutenant Governor in North Carolina, not the one that was running for.
Right. Yeah. He was lost as well. Weatherman, I think.
Right.
I think was the name.
He was a fairly normal Republican, and
comparatively,
that's I want to compare Kamala with that one, because folks could say, well, the only reason the Democrat won in North Carolina is that he ran against a nutcase.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Nutcase was superintendent, but the guy who was a normal Republican also lost.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Which what it shows is that there was something characteristically wrong with Kamala, and we know what that is.
And the thing was, people did not really argue against her policies. And I saw, and you may have seen this, and I can't recall if it was the Washington Post or the New York Times, but one of them did a survey, and they just laid out the policies. Didn't say who the candidate was. People preferred her policies until they found out they were her policies. And then suddenly they were, oh no. It reminds me of Obamacare back when it first came on the scene. And, you know, I believe it was Kentucky. Change the name of it. quit calling it Obamacare, because people that needed it wouldn't accept it because it was coming from Obama.
Exactly.
There you go.
They decided to call it Connect. And by calling it Connect, they lost the association with Obama. And people would say, we don't want that damn Obamacare, but we want Connect. It's like, okay. Give me your Connect. It's okay. You know, but I mean, I think I wrote a piece. I don't know if you saw the article that I wrote on the thing. And I said, until we decide to look in the mirror, until we as Americans decide to look in the mirror, we will continue completely to vote against our own interests. Because again, we are going to the same thing that occurred with Bush, right? Obama could come in and do some good policies. He had to first clean up the mess that was brought to him because of, and let's be clear, Bush wasn't solely responsible for the crash of the economy. Clinton with Glass-Steagall had some.
Oh yeah, no question about it.
But the thing about Clinton and Glass-Steagall is that we always knew he was a strong neoliberal. We always knew that.
So if I can just interject, I was still a bond salesman at the time. My specialization was mortgage-backed securities. I told somebody today, don't blame me for what happened with the mortgage market. But at the same time, so we're talking about the middle 1990s. Exactly. I was still living in Arkansas, so I was definitely a Clinton fan. But in retrospect, the decision that Democrats made at that time, remember, Bill Clinton was what is the Democrat? He was the head of the Democratic National Committee or
no. I know what it was.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I know.
It was basically they just decided we're just gonna, we can't beat them, so we'll join them, kind of thing. And Democrats began to be sort of Republican light, if you will, and they figured that was the best strategy. And then when he came in, of course, you got the crime bill and all that. But as you said, there were a number of policies with regard to social, welfare, these sort of things that we adopted a lot of republicanism, under the guy. We just figured, I guess that's what we had to do to win.
I think it was called the Democratic Leadership. No, it wasn't a company.
I think you're right. The Democratic Leadership Council, the DLC, I think.
Yeah, the DLC.
I was the head of that. And, I mean, I was young. It was our guy. And I didn't know Bill Clinton, but being in Arkansas, you were adjacent. Everybody was adjacent.
Right.
And he was a good politician. There's no question. As was Hillary. She kind of, she has her faults too. They all do. But back to your point, I was in the business that benefited from getting rid of Glass-Steagall.
Right.
So in a short-sighted way, I would certainly, sort of own that. I was like, yeah, get rid of it.
It's interesting because I did an interview with a MAGA, for once, I got an intelligent MAGA.
I saw that. I haven't seen the interview, but I want to see it.
And he brought up the stuff about the mortgage-backed securities, and I had to remind him what a derivative was, and also how it wasn't Obama forcing the you guys at that time, the mortgage guys, to give bad loans. You guys just were able to packetize bad loans and name them good loans by the magic.
What people have to understand about the business and I think it probably accrues to pretty much any business. When regulators set rules, then what the people who are the subject to those rules do is look for the loophole.
Right.
You just do. I mean, and so when I started, mortgage-backed securities were very new. Nobody understood them, but they were also relatively simple.
Right.
By the time I ended up in New York, so we're talking now 2000, 2001, there were so many iterations that, offshoots of derivatives that came from those simple securities we started with. And all the smart guys work for the investment banks. So the regulators, they didn't know really how dangerous some of this stuff was.
You call them smart guys, right? I call them charlatanes, because what they did is they came up.
I'm sorry, what's that word again?
It's charlatans. It's just charlatanes.
Well, I mean, that's the business we were in. I mean,
because they use mathematical formulas that nobody else supposedly understood to show that mixing bad and good loans could create a good security.
No question about it. No
sense whatsoever. But going back to the subject of Kamala, however, though, where do we go from here? I mean, I have one of my radio show callers that kind of took exception when I said, when he agreed that Kamala lost because of race and gender, but he didn't want to accentuate it because he said what that means is for the next 10 years, Democrats can't run a woman or a person of color. And I'm saying person of color because we could be,
sure,
black, Chinese.
They could be Asian, they could be anything. But see, and maybe it's my personality.
Right.
I'm of the mind that the mistake we make, and possibly a mistake that she made, because if you think about it, I think Obama did this to some extent. They don't want to own that I am black,
right.
and they don't want to call a thing when the DEI stuff starts up, and you got people who are objectively ignorant saying this person is ignorant, and it never there was really, and maybe there was and I missed it, but I never really saw any pushback to that argument.
No, they were scared. I get it.
And they got to quit being scared. That's
Marlon,
the problem with Democrats.
One of the problems is whereas Republicans lean into what is a perceived weakness, we run. And the truth of the matter is, here are some stats, right? DEI. Who does DEI benefit the most? White women. Who does affirmative action benefit the most? White women. Who does all these set-asides benefit the most, right? And as opposed to Kamala, as soon as they point these things out, come out and bring a white sister on with her, and then point out, when we're talking about DEI programs, it's because my sister here didn't get the break that she deserved. I didn't get the break. I mean, I don't understand how these people campaign, because here is the deal. People talk about the Latino men sunk her candidacy, or black, that's this very small percentage of black men that switched towards Trump sunk her. No, the real, we have to get honest with who the real swing voters are in this country. The real swing voters in America aren't black women, aren't Latinos, it's white women.
No,
white women.
No question. Now, you correct me if I'm wrong. Did a bigger percentage of Latino men swing Republican than we've seen normally?
Yes.
It did increase. So, that was one thing. But at the same time, Latino women, or Latinas, if you will, they came through. So in the end, it's white folks. We knew we weren't going to get white men.
Right.
Not any more than we normally do.
Exactly.
So, like you say, it's and that, man, you can draw a through line all the way back to slavery with that.
Exactly. But
You
look,
know, of white women just saying, you know what, if we can just be adjacent, and obviously not all white women,
no,
but
no,
in a
I
general
make sure to
sense.
look. I make sure to say that white women are
Oh no,
my
dude, I'm married to a
biggest
white woman, so I got to
supporters.
really be careful. I'm just saying that as a group,
Right.
they you think it looks like voting against interest, but at the same time, there's that benefit of being adjacent to the patriarchy.
I mentioned, we think so much alike.
And we
Um,
haven't talked, what, in a year at least?
you're right. We think so much alike, and it is. And I have there is this woman on TikTok that I'm trying to find her video because it's a white woman and she is explaining that same thing as well. I can't find the damn video that I want to bring to my audience, but she's saying the same thing that in effect, white women have to break those chains that they believe is holding them up right now because it really isn't. It's still, I mean, if you take a look at how Trump treats not black women, but all women, right? If you take a look at what occurs in the Republican Party, they just got assigned, they assigned all their chairmanships. Women were completely wiped out, left out.
It mystifies me, honestly. The only thing that mystifies me more is black Republicans. And I'm talking about, look, I have worked with black guys who are Republicans. I'm talking about these guys in the inner circle.
Remember how I started this discussion? I wasn't sure if you were, I remembered you were in Securities. I didn't remember if you were a Republican or not Republican. So I wanted to make sure to start.
Well, okay, I will just solve the mystery. I am a registered Democrat. I'm an unhappy Democrat.
Okay.
I will tell you, real talk. I voted Republican in the past. I have campaigned for a Republican in Arkansas. Now it was a unique situation. The guy was a friend of mine, but he was a Rockefeller. Arkansas had a Rockefeller that was a governor back in the day. His son was a friend, and one of my brothers and I campaigned for him. He ended up being lieutenant governor. But that's a completely different era than what we're talking about now, where we have. I don't even know that Ronald Reagan could get elected in this party.
Oh no,
that we're talking about.
DC in the chat says it was race and misogyny to the Obamacare. To the Obamacare ACA issue. Folks did not want to have Obamacare, but they are okay with ACA, which is something that we spoke about before.
Yeah.
Alistair Warner is in the house as well. Hi, Alistair. Great to have you here, sister. Any woman who votes Republican is a fool, according to this woman here. So we have quite a few people chatting.
I see this DC person also says we've got, and this is a very good point, we have to talk about civics. Now, I'll tell you, as you may recall, I have, now a son that is a freshman at NC State, and my daughter's about to graduate from UNC Wilmington. And she came out of high school during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So for that year and a half, essentially, we homeschooled our kids,
right?
Like a lot of people. Now, that was when I discovered how little they knew, just the basic stuff that we, seventh grade.
Mm-hmm.
They did not know the Electoral College. They didn't know what it was. They heard about it. They didn't know. Here I am, 20 miles from Wilmington. They didn't really know about the Wilmington Massacre. They didn't know just things in history. Just maybe they spent a couple of paragraphs on it. And this is crazy. She was, and I can't recall what course it was, but it was online, and they had hired the school district. They hire vendors to provide these modules.
Right.
And so I'm helping her with this one, and the reference that they were using was the Heritage Foundation.
Oh my God.
And I just about lost it. And the only thing that saved that school for me was that it was COVID and there was nobody for me to really go grab. But yeah, I said, you know what? And I had to explain it actually opened a door for me to explain to her and her brother subsequently how to critically examine information, how to source and this sort of thing. But yeah, the school district was using the Heritage Foundation.
It is, Marlon, it is, it is, for the guy, you remember you earlier spoke about the guy who, at breakfast or whatever, he called Kamala empty Sue. What did she do as she was vice president? One of the things that allowed these people to forget this is just that thing about civics. When I came to the country, I had to take my citizenship test. Right. I had to learn everything about this country, how it operates, the branches, these different things. Ironically, I'm in several organizations where many of the kids never learned it in school. They don't get it. They don't understand it. So that is what, and by design, one of the reasons we take the books out of the schools, we don't want critical thinking taught. We don't want, all these different issues is because a dumb population is a manipulative population, which is how Trump won. People believe, the bad thing about social media is you get the things that are targeted to you. And Trump did some great targeting. They laughed at a commercial or a set of commercials he did about menthol cigarettes. Okay. And
what?
Yeah. Trump did targeted black men with Kamala banning menthol cigarettes. Now, how many votes are that? That may be, I don't know, 10,000.
But he deals on the edges. He doesn't need, he just needs just enough. Enough. And you have to really give it to the guy. And as much, there are some things about Trump that are hilarious. I'm the kind of person that I don't vote on who the funniest person is, but a lot of people do. And some of the things the guy says are hilarious, but they're just that's his level. And there's a certain segment of the population. I've read numerous articles where people's comments are, he's really funny.
Right.
And that's how they're making their decision.
Exactly.
And this other person, I don't even know what she's talking about. But it's sad. And I heard something today, and I really have been feeling this way, but I hadn't quite articulated it verbally. I heard a guy say, okay, the first time you vote for someone like Trump, maybe people didn't understand, didn't know. And, we all have said, well, the guardrails are going to hold. And they did to a large extent until maybe right there at the end. But they, even then, with January 6th, still did. I'm kind of the mind right now that America needs to find out.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong, I don't want, I don't wish bad things on people, but you got folks that keep on voting for this and they think they want it. So let's let them maybe see what it's like when the FBI just stops being the FBI. And we were talking about it this afternoon, listening to what Cash Patel has been saying about day one, I'm shutting down the Murrah, or whatever, the FBI.
The main headquarters, he's
going to shut it down. Yeah. And I just think we're at the place now that people need to really understand how bad this can get. Let some Social Security, some of these folks that are in their 50s, let them raise that the age to 70. See how you like it.
It's funny. I am 63 now. I made sure I signed up. I took it out. I did all the actuarial tables and all of that, and found out that people are for those people. Well, I know you're kind of a money man, but I am an engineering kind of guy, and I figured based on life expectancy and all that good stuff, it makes no sense for me to sit down and wait. So
no, I did the same thing during COVID.
Right.
I mean, I will, full disclosure, I will be 67
Right.
in my next birthday next year. But during COVID, I did the math because I had two kids that were still in, high school and junior high at the time. And so I went through the whole, and it made no sense
It
for me to
makes no
wait
sense.
5 or 6 more years.
It makes no sense
And
because
so I went ahead and took the money.
the
And
recovery.
now looking back, I'm so glad I'm so glad I did, because I don't think they're going to mess with the folks who are already receiving benefits, because you've heard people like Nikki Haley, when she was running, she was saying we need to raise the rate, the age to the retirement age to 70 or 72, or whatever the average life expectancy is. So a lot of those people are the ones that put us in the place where we are now.
For Donald, the Donald need to find the money to pay for those tax cuts, and Kamala had promised them, we are getting older. You're having to take care of your older parents. She
I
was
know. She was throwing a lifeline to these folks, and they said, "No, we want that. We don't know why. We don't believe you." I mean, think about it. I actually heard, and I won't say who it was, saying that Democrats had moved too far to the right, and they were using the example of Liz Cheney and going after those voters. See, from my perspective, if you want to win, you try to get all the votes wherever they are.
Exactly.
Now, I draw the line at the Klan and people like that, but but I'm just saying, are you crazy? You're not going to ask Republicans to vote for you? Of course you should. But her policies were far from anything you would expect from the right. I mean, we're talking about child tax credits, money to start a business. And I, as a person with a little business, I was really going, "Oh, please, I could use that kind of help."
Let me tell you, when she went to Liz Cheney, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I may be naive, but I have been in politics a long time. I just hadn't count on the sexism and racism being deep as it was.
America continues to surprise me with how
Let me tell
racist
you,
it can be.
my audience on my radio show, my audience on my Substack, my audience on my all the other platforms that I have. I have a mostly white audience. Okay.
Okay.
And what behooves me is it amazes me how progressive and supportive these guys can be. So it colored my lens
Right.
into thinking that somehow things have changed because my audience looked like America.
Right.
Words,
I've been on your show. I know the guys
yes,
that show up.
my
It is
audience looks
something.
like America. It's about 13% black. When I do the demographics of my audience, it looks like America. And
Right.
I am thinking, wow, this is great. And now Kamala gets the green light. And it's not that I want Kamala to win because Kamala is a person of color and a woman. It's
But you don't
because
want her to lose because of it either, right?
he was competent, the most competent person running.
Well, what does that tell you?
Yes.
It broke my heart. I really, and I'm old enough, Egberto, that it's not like I was out marching with MLK, but my
Right.
parents did back in the day, right? And so I can remember those things, like them getting up early on the weekend and going, marching and getting, not put in jail, but getting beat up, that kind of thing. And so I think about, I mean, that's 50 years ago. That's
Yeah.
more than 50 years ago. I was a
Yeah.
kid. So I just think about, what would they think? What would they think
Let
if
me tell you
they
something.
were to see where we are right now?
Marlon, let me tell you something. I'll be honest with you. I'm a strong black man, but I cried.
Oh,
And
listen, there was sadness, and in my case, and I actually wrote about this on my notes the
yeah,
day after. Um, my daughter, who's 21. So the first election she ever paid any attention to was when Hillary ran.
Mm-hmm.
And when we had to tell her, because remember, they didn't really call it, and it was the middle of the night. So she'd gone to bed and she was getting up the next day for school. And she said, well, who won? And when I told her Trump had won, she thought I was kidding.
Right.
And man, she cried so hard. So this time was her first time to get to vote for president. And, she voted, she signed petitions. My youngest voted, and they were crushed. And so we had to, the next morning, and we were crushed, but we had to console them. He was up at school, both of them are, at their respective schools. And and the thing that they both kept saying to us was, I don't understand this. I don't, because their perception of what America is supposed to be about does not allow for this.
My daughter came into the office and she said, Dad, I told you so. A friend of mine called me and she was upset. This is an executive at a major oil company. And she was listening to the show all of the times. And, I had this positive vibe, and I'm talking landslide because I know that she locked up the base and was going for those darn, I wasn't believing those numbers because of the guys that I'm seeing. And I was, And I figured Liz Cheney and all of that was the lock. This was now given
I
permission.
Thought if Dick Cheney can get around his politics,
yes,
vote for this person, what white guy?
Right.
I mean,
Marlon, listen, Marlon, imagine this. I figured she was now going to give a lot of Republican women permission.
Mm-hmm.
If this ultra conservative white woman was going to vote for Kamala Harris, she gave the permission structure that was necessary. Yep. And I tell you, when I cried, because I went on the radio in Lifetime and I was there, I knew for the audience, I wanted to give them a positive affirmation. I wanted them to say, well, we live another day to fight. And that's what I believe. That's what I'm working on right now. I am in the game of the opposition right now that we're going to do. But here it is, Marlon. When I was listening to Claire McCaskill, the former senator from Missouri, Claire went on MSNBC and she pointed out, my God, what is it going to take?
I know what I heard her say, and I wrote it down.
Let me hear what you know.
She said, Trump knew America better than we did.
Yes.
That's the thing I heard. And I literally have a draft of an article, and it's very difficult for me to write it because of what we're talking about.
Right.
But I wrote that, I went back and I listened, and she said, as it turns out, Trump knew America better than we did.
And I tell you that after that, she went and said, the most, I don't remember the words exactly, but in effect, the most qualified person. And in effect, she said, I know how it feels. And I don't know about you, Marlon. In fact, no, I do know about you. You went to New York, I think it was, and how you were treated in as much as you knew the material. I remember from our interview, it didn't matter that you knew the material. There was a certain look just because of who you were, including that person that tells you, we don't do business with people of your kind. In other words, it had nothing to do with your competency. And brother,
I had a guy tell me straight to my face, and he was asking me for business.
You told him that's the story you told.
This was a guy asking. I was running a trading desk.
Yes.
And I had a very expensive infrastructure that I had assembled, and I had hired guys from Merrill, which at the time was still around, just the cream of the crop. And this guy wanted me to buy his system. And I said, well, what I am working with is superior to this. And he said, yeah, but you guys don't know how to trade.
Right.
And I just couldn't believe and I think he said it before he even thought of what he was saying to me.
Well, here's the funny thing about it, Marlon, and I don't know if I told you this then. When they're talking to a person who knows, a person of color who knows, they actually forget that you're a person of color, because at that point they're interacting with you how you want them to interact with you, as a man.
Yeah.
Not as a man of color or a white man or whatever, as a man. And then they forget. And that's when that comes. I tell you, the hurt that I felt after listening to Claire McCaskill brought back all the feelings for every instant that I went when I came to this country and had to live through. Hey, by the way, this is a little thing. I wrote this little book called Tribulations of an Afro-Latino Caribbean Man. And the reason I wrote it tells everything that she went through. Okay? Because that you went through. It didn't matter how good you were. There's a group of folk here that Trump could make you a threat to their further progress. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Trump, and when Claire said that, I mean, I'm going to tell you bluntly, I cried like a baby. I had to put down, and it was like, my God, I thought it was over that. This is the book, man. I thought I was over that. And that is what happened, brother. That is what it is like. What is it going to take? But I tell you what, there's progress. If we want, there's progress.
Yeah. I mean, if you look hard enough, and use North Carolina for the example. I mean, now we have Democratic African-American as lieutenant governor? Not lieutenant, head of the education department. I'm trying to remember the lieutenant governor. I can't recall. Who ran it in that race. But we've got Democrats up across the board. Now, interestingly, we have a Democrat that won in the Supreme Court, and it's still
600 votes or something like that.
It's like 750 votes or something. And the guy, they've had 3 recounts, and the guy just won't let it go. And so
he wants to dump 60,000 provisional votes, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Even with that, she still wins. I mean, but what we have is we've got Democrats running like it's 1999, and we got Republicans running like it doesn't matter who got the most votes.
They took away the powers from your governor. They took away the powers from the person.
Well, you saw he's actually filed a lawsuit, so we'll see how that goes.
Again, I think we're coming close to the end of this.
Yeah, we are. So, time goes fast when you're having fun.
I want to thank you first of all for accepting this invite at this late moment. But I'm always happy to talk to you, because it's always enlightening when we have these discussions, and I'm sure that the audience appreciates it as well. I can see in some of the chats. I want to thank all of you guys that spent some of your Friday night to listen to 2 young men discuss.
Very young men.
Give me a closer, my brother.
Well, I think, you know what? I would, something I've been thinking a lot about since the election, I've watched very little television. Mm-hmm. Well, I should say very little cable news. Mm-hmm. And, I think it's been reflected in the ratings that I'm reading about. Is a lot of people are sort of not just turning the channel, but turning the TV off. Yeah. And they're looking for other voices. And I think maybe this is our time to, we've got the platform, we've got the ability to get out there, and hopefully folks spread the word. And, and what we say, it's on us to make sense.
Well, Marlon, I'm going to tell you straight up, right? It's on us. My brother, Tom Hartman, okay?
Right.
Tom Hartman is a good friend of mine. And one of the things that we talk about, if you listen to how he ends his show, he always says, tag it.
Tag, you're it.
Okay? And it is on us.
Yeah, I just saw someone here say we're looking for truth. And So back in my old days, my days as a trader, we had it's sort of a mantra. In God we trust, everybody else bring data. And
There
and
you
it's that's kind of how I operate. I have an opinion for
I,
sure, but I try to back it up with evidence and
well, I
facts.
mean, and that's what we do. And to tell you the truth now, we cannot depend on the mainstream media any longer because now they're trying to kowtow to
Oh yeah,
Donald Trump. Even some of our larger progressive media. I don't know if you saw the story I did on TYT
I
with
did. I did see it. And I
Okay,
was unaware of that until you wrote about it. And I
right.
was like, well, wow. Oh, yeah. It wasn't, no, it was one of your shows where you had a guy who, I guess, sort of quit live
That was
from
actually
TYT.
Mondale.
Now,
He's actually a
he's in
mayor in
North Carolina, right?
He's
I did not know about this guy.
Yeah, he took. In fact, the KKK wants to knock him off because he got the Confederate statue down in that town in Euclid, not Euclid, Enclave, North Carolina. Okay, look up
Yeah.
Mondale Robinson. He is a.
So
I've
the
known
point I think from that is I'm in North Carolina and I learned that news from you.
Yes. Well, that's why we're doing this now. We are now a network of progressive media. We are the ones who are going to have to do this work going forward.
Yep.
And by the way, folks, that's why you need to subscribe and support us because I'm telling you,
That's right. The journeyman
do the work.
Well,
Marlon's doing the work. We are doing the work. So anyway, look, brother, thank you so kindly. And for those of you who spent your time to listen to us, I end the show the way I always end it. Love you all, and I mean that from the depths of my heart. Please keep listening, keep subscribing, and ensure that we can continue doing this. Thank you so kindly.
Absolutely.
Wonderful
My
rest
pleasure. Anytime.
Absolutely. Peace.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.